You're listening to Big World Network.
Skyfire, Episode 7, written and read by Arthur W. Johnson. A week after the fair, Fahey stepped out of the cottage door, cane in hand, to see who was calling Sheamus's name. The rheumatism in his legs had eased in the past couple of days, and he thought he could soon relieve Sheamus behind the plow. He squinted up at the afternoon sun peeking between the clouds, then back at the young man running along the road. He held his cupped hands to his mouth and yelled back, "Robin is in the field out back." He watched as the lad changed course and marveled at how much Robin had altered the course of his life in a few days. "Da, he's taken her, da," Sheamus later yelled as he raced around the corner of the cottage. "Who's taken whom?" Fahey asked as Robin, puffing through still swollen lips with new blood on his cheeks, came to a stop beside Sheamus. "Lord Mayfair has taken Patricia, da. Patch up Robin's face where Mayfair hit him with his riding crop when he tried to stop him, will you, da? I'm going after them." "Be careful, lad. You know how dangerous he is," Fahey said, his voice rising to catch up with Sheamus as he raced away. "That's twice the treacherous Mayfair has hit me in the face in the last week," Robin said as Fahey dabbed at a cut with a wet rag. "There won't be a third time." Robin left after Fahey tended to him. Fahey chose to occupy himself the only way he knew how, and hobbled out to the field where the last row Sheamus had been plowing up for harvest ended in a zigzag. He would just straighten that up, then go on with the plowing and the potato bagging, rheumatism or not. As Robin raced down the road trying to catch up with Sheamus, he kept remembering the maniacal look on Mayfair's face. The monster had laughed and ridden away with Patricia across his lap. She was struggling, but that was hard to do, belly down over a moving horse's shoulders. Robin had seen her mouth open and then come down on Mayfair's thigh with her teeth, followed by his bellow of pain. The only solution Robin could see was to do away with Lord Mayfair altogether. He began thinking about a plan that he would present to Sheamus when he did catch up with him. He saw a lone figure coming toward him. When he got closer, he could see that it was Will Brandon. Will was smiling and waving. Robin wondered if there truly was something mentally wrong with him. As they neared each other, Will asked, "Did ya hear? Lord Mayfair's kept his promise and took Patricia off to Mayfield Manor. Wait till Sheamus finds out. I wish I could see the look on his face when he hears. That would be so much fun." Robin had laid a fist into the rest of the words before they could emerge. The anger he felt for Mayfair had found an outlet in Mayfair's bastard brother. He fell back exhausted and stared at Will's bruised and bloody face until the latter came back to the world of the conscious. Will groaned and looked at Robin, staggered to his feet, and then stumbled into the grove to lick his wounds. Father O'Connor stepped through the gates in front of the O'Loughlin cottage in time to see Sheamus racing up the street in his direction. He leaned against the post and waited. As Sheamus neared, he put his hands on his hips and asked, "Where would you be going in such a fit, lad?" He fell into step as Sheamus answered, "To Mayfield, Father." The priest took Sheamus's arm and spun him to a halt, facing him. "If the rumors I heard are true, you have every right to be angry. But, lad," he said as he laid a caring hand on the nape of Sheamus's neck, "remember who you are dealing with. He is capable of any kind of wickedness." "Father, I know all that. I have seen the evils he's done in the past, but he has stepped far beyond the boundaries this time," he hissed. "I don't want Patricia hurt, Father." "I know you don't, lad. Neither do I. But she is young, and the law is on Lord Mayfair's side. I don't like it any more than you, but he has a right to any lass before she is wed." "I don't accept their law. She is innocent, Father," Sheamus barked. "Sheamus, lad, listen to me." Sheamus saw once more the look of the teacher in the good father's eyes as he lowered his voice and said, You and Patricia have your entire lives before you. By now Lord Mayfair has already had his way with her, and it is over." He tightened his fingers on Sheamus's neck as the lad became more agitated. "Don't let that damage your love for her. She will still be the same person as before. She will love you no less, and if you are gentle and understanding, she will love you even more. At first she will feel soiled and unworthy of your attention, but if she sees that you care, she will return your devotion. Always remember, you get out of a relationship what you put into it. Aye, Father, I know, but I must do something to free her now." Father O'Connor's reply was halted by the sound of a horse approaching at full gallop. Lord Mayfair pulled up beside them and looked back and forth between the two before commenting, "Nothing like a gallop in the countryside after an afternoon's tussle with a beautiful girl." Sheamus started forward, but Father O'Connor's hand, still on the nape of his neck, stopped him. "What right do you have to abduct this man's betrothed and drag her to Mayfield for your foul use?" "Ha! As Lord of Mayfield, I have the right to do as I please. I have the right to any virgin prior to the wedlock, and lad, she was a virgin." He sneered as he looked into Sheamus's eyes. Looking back at the priest, he asked, "What right do you have to question me?" "As the spiritual and moral leader of these people, I claim that right, and in that capacity I demand that you set her free." Father O'Connor's eyes locked in fierce combat with the unfeeling eyes of the young lord. "Was it in that same sacrosanct capacity that you desired to strike me a few years ago in the Endolock pub?" Father O'Connor shifted slightly. The monster had remembered, as he said he would. Mayfair continued, "I told you I wouldn't forget." His horse, anxious to be in his stall, began to prance and canter sideways, fighting the reins. Mayfair brought the animal under control several paces away and turned his head back toward the two men. "Besides, I don't recognize your faith, sir." With that, he spurred the horse's flanks, causing it to rear and bolt straight for Sheamus and Father O'Connor. Sheamus pushed the priest sideways and dove toward the gate, but it was too late. The sharp hooves caught the good father in the neck and chest as he hit the ground. Lord Mayfair galloped away, oblivious to the damage he had done. "She'll be better when I'm through with her, dirt farmer," he yelled over his shoulder as he rode off. The well-known fiendish laugh died away as he sped on. Sheamus scrambled over to the fallen priest, who gasped and spit blood. Crouching beside the pontiff, Sheamus raised his gray head onto his own outstretched leg. As he cradled the old man's head, the good father raised a feeble finger to the gathering sunset and with his dying breath said, "Tanyen kumis lemon goruskis." Sheamus looked down at the still face and wept bitter tears, the loss mingled with those of hatred. His watery eyes went back to the brightly lit clouds where he was sure he saw a dark-clad figure moving away from him. Patricia sat up, dazed. She looked around the room with eyes that did not see the rich appointments. It was a man's room, boasting silk tapestries of a boar hunt on one wall, faced by a fox hunt on the opposite. The wainscot around the fireplace spoke of one who chose perfection in craftsmanship, for each plank was perfectly matched in grain. But her unseeing eyes cared nothing for the implication. Her heart ached so badly. She sobbed into her hands, "Oh, Sheamus, you'll not be wanting me now." But her words faded away, unheard by anyone but herself. After the monster had beaten her into submission, she had shown no emotion except loathing toward him the entire time Lord Mayfair was using her. The deep fear she felt remained locked away from his reach. She would not grant him that desire which he most wanted. She did not cry or scream. He had tried every form of torture his evil mind knew, but she had stared past him blindly. Finally, he had tired of the game and gone off riding. As he had stomped from the room, she had pulled her camisole back on and felt a little better. She fretted with the dress, noticing a small rip he had made in his haste to remove it. She was about to lace the bodice when she heard a massive front door slam shut. With a rush of dread, she let the tears flow until she cleansed her soul. She had known she should have gotten out while she could, but she had been so exhausted that she had finally welcomed the peace that only sleep could bring. Now awake, her hidden fears were also reawakened at the sound of Mayfair's return. She began to search the room for a weapon, her mind racing. Could she use a weapon on Lord Mayfair if he came for her again? She didn't know. She toyed with the poker beside the hearth, but decided that it was too obvious. The man was no fool, only cruel. Her eyes fastened on the line of bottles on the serving cart. Broken, they would be sharp and small enough to hide in the folds of her dress. She had moved within reach of the cart when the second door slammed shut, causing her to jump and back away from the door by the cart. Her heart raced as she listened for footsteps, but she heard none. Instead, there was the drone of 2 male voices. She crept to the door that led to the sitting room. As he made his way through the woods of Mayfield Manor, Sheamus thought about the irony of a loaded pistol being kept next to the chalice in the sacristy. He was probably the only person in Athlone who knew about it, and silently thanked Father O'Connor for his foresight. He hoped he would know what to do with it, having never fired a pistol before. He rubbed the muzzle for reassurance as he crept toward the great front terrace. He felt as though every eye of every stone lion's support watched as he crept along below the banister. He reached the French window and shuddered as his fingers wrapped around the lever. Slowly he pulled down and could not believe his luck, for it moved with ease. He stepped in and moved behind the heavy brocaded drape that hung 12 feet between ceiling and floor. Motes of dust danced in the light shining through the crack in the drapes, and he nearly sneezed, giving himself away. He avoided touching the cloth again. He put his eye to the crack but saw no one in the room. What he did see were paintings on the walls in ornate frames, finely made furniture with curved legs, and decorative rugs on the floor in front of the furniture. As Sheamus laid his hand on the edge of the red and gold drape to part them, he heard voices saying good evening beyond the door, and stayed where he was. He heard the front door close and the sitting room door open. He watched Lord Mayfair stride boldly into the room, giving the paintings a sneer. The monster closed the door and went to the wing-back chair near the hearth. After he sat down with his back to the room, Sheamus slid out of his hiding place and over to the door. He turned the key, and as it clicked, Lord Mayfair waved toward the side table and said, "Leave it, John." Sheamus had worried about his accuracy from across the room, but his luck was more than he had expected. Cocking the pistol, he crossed the room and aimed it at Lord Mayfair's head. "Where is she?" His fury was that of pure fire, as brilliant as that in the hearth. His arms were extended, and he held the pistol with both hands. Lord Mayfair spoke, and the words were clear. "Well, if it isn't the lowly dirt farmer." Judging by the shape of his cheek, he wore a testy grin that made one loathe him. "Aren't you the one they call the Prince of Potatoes?" Sheamus shifted from foot to foot like a bird cornered by a snake. He barked again. "Where is she?" He moved around so he could see Mayfair's face better. The grin Mayfair displayed turned to scorn as he lied. "She couldn't take it, so she killed herself." He waved his hand nonchalantly and said, "But that's all right. The only good Irish are dead ones." Mayfair made a sudden move, causing Sheamus to back away. He caught his heel on the claw and ball foot of a Queen Anne chair and fell backward. As he spun to catch himself, the priming powder sprayed from the pistol in an arc. But he was not aware of that, for he raised the pistol and he said, "Then you too shall die." He pulled the trigger, and the flint drove home with a resounding click as Lord Mayfair broke into a hideous laugh that made Sheamus' spine crawl. "You lose, dirt farmer," he said as he calmly rose and walked to another table. "You lost your priming powder, and now you lose all." He casually removed a dueling pistol and a bag of powder from a beautifully engraved box. Sheamus dove across the table, knocking Mayfair against the wall. He scrambled to his feet and grabbed up the powder. He reprimed the pistol as Mayfair staggered to his feet. Lord Mayfair was just out of reach of grabbing Sheamus's pistol when the explosion ripped through the room. Mayfair seemed to watch the bullet as it entered his head between his eyes. Both pistols sank into the deep pile of the carpet. Sheamus turned back to the curtained French windows and left the manor house. Startled by the blast of the gunshot in the adjoining room, Patricia got up the nerve to open the door a crack and peeked around the edge in time to see the curtain fall back over the windows on the opposite wall. She opened the sitting room door wider and entered to find the monster laying on the floor with a pool of his own blood spreading outward from his head. The locked door to the hallway rattled. She stooped and retrieved the gun she had kicked and was about to go to the window to see who had fired it when the hall door burst open, wood shards flying to admit her captors. She had a fair idea who had gone through the curtain window. For the first time since everything had begun, Sheamus dreamt of Patricia and basked in her glow anew. He wondered when he awoke why she had not come to him before. Maybe her trek to heaven had taken longer than the others had. Kyle was watching him when he woke. "What were you dreaming about, lad? I've never seen anyone smile in their sleep before." "I dreamt of Patricia, the woman I loved." "You never told me about a lady love. How could you leave a lady love, lad?" "It's a long story and I'm not ready to tell it yet. Maybe I will someday."
Music by Kevin MacLeod.
You're listening to Big World Network.